supposed to be the next new edition, but somebody set them up. They sold millions of records. They opened for Michael Jackson. They had grown men singing Aisha in public like it was a breakup anthem. And then they vanished. No tour, no solo projects, no where are they now segment. Just gone. And it wasn't because they grew up or outgrew the industry. Nah, that's what they want you to believe. The real story? Another bad creation, ABC, was sabotaged, blocked from touring, cut out of their money, and even dissed in one of the most iconic songs of the 90s by a former friend turned rival. How do you go from BET darlings to being the target of Criss Cross's shade? And why did the very people who helped create ABC turn around and bury them? This isn't a nostalgia trip, it's an exposé. Because when you follow the trail of missing money, shady mentors, and quiet blackballing, it's clear. ABC didn't fall off. They were pushed. Let's break down what really happened to the group that was supposed to be the next new edition, but got played like amateurs in a game rigged against them. So let's talk about the lie that's been floating around since the 90s, that ABC just couldn't grow up with their audience, or that their moment passed and they faded like every other one-hit wonder. That's the misconception. But it didn't come from nowhere. ABC was branded as a kid group, hard. Everything from their clothes to their lyrics to their promo photos screamed playground energy. They were marketed like candy, colorful, energetic, fun, and disposable. The industry never really gave them room to mature, and by the time they tried, the door had already been slammed shut. And let's be real, people love a good whatever happened to story because it feels harmless. It lets everyone off the hook. Oh, they were cute. That one song was fun. Guess they just stopped making music. But here's what's suspicious. ABC sold over 2 million copies of their first album. Playground went gold. They had the visuals, the style, the numbers. They were everywhere. BET, MTV, radio. They even got invited by Michael Jackson himself to be in the black or white video. But after just one more album, poof, no promo, no tour, no support, gone. And this wasn't just bad luck. This was engineered. Because behind the scenes, there were people who either didn't believe in their longevity or didn't want them to grow. And once you start digging into who got cut out of their success and who showed up on diss tracks after the fact, it starts to look less like a coincidence and more like a hit job. Here's the truth. Nobody wants to say out loud. Another bad creation was never supposed to last. From the beginning, they were marketed like a fad, something shiny to sell fast and toss when it got old. Even their label name Biv 10 said it all. It was Michael Bivins' baby, and ABC was just the test run. Think about it. They had the hits. They had the momentum. But what didn't they have? A real tour, a long-term plan, ownership, artistic control, and the craziest part? Their own team might have been the reason for that. In interviews, group member Red basically said it, "We wanted to tour. That's how artists make money." But Bivins didn't let it happen. That's not just poor planning. That's control. That's somebody pulling strings to keep them just successful enough to cash in, but never successful enough to break free. Why would you block a tour for a group that just went platinum? Unless you didn't want them to find out how valuable they really were. Because here's the other piece. Money. They sold over 3 million cassettes, back when cassettes were $15 a pop. That's over $45 million in revenue. And ABC? They didn't see a dime, not even scraps. Their families were still living in tough neighborhoods while suits and boardrooms were cashing royalty checks. This wasn't just poor business, it was a setup. The contracts, the decisions, the fake mentorship, it was all about control. ABC wasn't built to win. They were built to sell fast and vanish quietly. And the people who could have changed that chose not to. Let's break this down. You sell 3 million cassettes. At $15 each, that's $45 million in gross revenue. So, why were these kids still going home to the hood? Red said it plainly in an interview. For us not to even get none of that, that's kind of crazy. And it is crazy because the numbers don't lie, but the contracts did. These boys were kids. Literal children. Their parents didn't have industry lawyers, and their managers weren't looking out for them. They were looking out for the machine. The real money in music, especially back then, wasn't in record sales. It was in touring, merch, appearances, publishing. ABC never got any of that. They got blocked from doing a real tour. Why? Ask Michael Bivins. Red flat out said Bivens had control of their touring decisions. And for some reason, he didn't want them to tour. And here's where it gets shady. If you don't tour, you don't see real income. If you don't control your publishing, you don't see royalty checks. If your image and likeness are owned by your label, you're just a mascot. That's not an accident. That's a business model. It's the classic music industry hustle. Use the artist's image, push one hit, cash out quick, and move on to the next group before anyone gets smart. And because they were kids, ABC couldn't fight back. Meanwhile, the suits at Motown, Polygram, and Biv 10 kept it moving, launching Boys II Men, promoting other acts, and acting like ABC never existed. The financial fallout wasn't a side effect. It was the goal. ABC made millions. They just never got to keep any of it. This is where things get messy. Because believe it or not, one of the first people to help ABC might have later helped destroy them. Enter Jermaine Dupri. Before he was the mastermind behind So So Def, before Bow Wow, before Mariah Carey remixes, Jermaine was just a short teenager on the Atlanta scene, known for his crazy dance skills. He choreographed for Houdini and even showed up in the Freaks Come Out at Night video. And guess who he helped choreograph Playground and Aisha for? Yep, another bad creation. At the time, ABC didn't even realize how old he was. They thought he was just another kid like them. But Jermaine was already hustling in the game, and according to multiple interviews, he was supposed to produce tracks for ABC's debut album, but he got cut out, left behind, and then things got real personal. Because fast forward just a year later, and Jermaine Dupri emerges with a new kid group, Criss Cross, and their debut single Jump, it wasn't just a smash hit, it was a direct diss. Don't try to compare us to another bad little fad. Inside Out is wiggity, wiggity, wiggity whack. ABC was known for wearing their clothes inside out. It was their whole look. So you can't tell me that wasn't targeted. And guess who wrote those lines? Jermaine. He co-wrote and co-produced the track. Now let's connect the dots. ABC gets big. Jermaine gets cut. Criss Cross drops. ABC gets dissed. ABC disappears. Criss Cross takes over. Was it business? Was it petty revenge? Or was it Jermaine using Criss Cross to erase the very group he helped build? Whatever it was, the message was loud and clear. Jermaine had moved on, and ABC was getting phased out. If the first album made them stars, the second one made them ghosts. By 1993, ABC was older, wiser, and finally ready to take creative control, or at least try to. But when their second album dropped, it was clear something was off. The title alone, It Ain't What You Wear, It's How You Play It, felt like a rebrand nobody asked for. And the sound? All over the place. Their signature playful vibe was replaced with an awkward attempt at grown-up cool. But it wasn't their idea. According to the group, management changed everything. They picked the wrong singles, the wrong direction, and ignored what made ABC special. We didn't even get a straight answer about what was going on, they told Hype magazine. And let's not forget who was missing. Dallas Austin, the man behind their early sound, was gone. No longer involved, and without him, the album had no clear identity. It flopped. The two singles that were released, I Don't Want to Be Grown Up and Where's Your Little Sister, completely tanked. They didn't chart, didn't connect, and definitely didn't reflect what the group wanted to say. ABC was trying to grow up, but the label didn't know how to sell that. And instead of investing in their transition, they just pulled the plug. And behind the scenes, it got worse. Motown, who had partnered with Michael Bivens to back ABC, was sold to the Dutch company Polygram. And with new ownership came a new agenda. ABC wasn't part of it. Suddenly, there were no promo plans. No music videos, no tour dates, just silence. The second album wasn't just a failure, it was a death sentence. The group had no creative control, no label support, and no way to fight back. And the worst part? They were finally old enough to understand they were being played. Here's what's strange. Another bad creation sold millions, shaped 90s kid fashion, got invited by Michael Jackson, and yet, they're barely a footnote in R&B history. No documentaries, no retrospectives, no nostalgic BET specials, nothing. So why does nobody talk about them? Because the industry wants you to forget them. Think about it. ABC wasn't just a cute group. They were a walking reminder of everything wrong with the music business. They were exploited, manipulated, discarded, and they had the nerve to talk about it. They went on YouTube years later and started telling the truth, that they never saw their money, that their management failed them, that they were blocked from success on purpose. And in an industry that protects its secrets, that makes you a threat. It's no accident that when we talk about 90s boy groups, we hear about Boys II Men, Immature, B2K, even Criss Cross. But ABC? Crickets. Why? Because telling the ABC story means dragging powerful names into uncomfortable conversations. Michael Bivins, Motown, Polygram, Jermaine Dupri, maybe even the system itself. And let's be real. Nobody wants to air out the fact that these kids were sold as trendsetters, milked for profits, and then dumped without warning. ABC never got a real reunion. No big label comeback, no flowers, just quiet blackballing, and an industry pretending they never mattered. It's not that people forgot about ABC, it's that the industry made it easier to ignore them. So what happened to the boys behind Aisha once the cameras stopped rolling? They went home, literally. After being dropped like a hot mixtape, ABC returned to Atlanta. No lawsuits, no tabloid drama, just regular life. Some went to college, some started families, others disappeared from the spotlight altogether. But here's the twist. They never broke up. Yep, ABC never officially disbanded. They just faded from the industry's radar while staying connected as a group. In fact, in 2006, they quietly released a little-known EP called Grady Baby Compilation. No major rollout, no press tour, just a project for the real fans. And they still perform. From small festivals to nostalgic R&B showcases, ABC's been spotted doing what they love, just without the flash, the money, or the recognition they deserved. In 2019, they even hit the stage at Funkfest, still giving that same energy that made them famous. But not everyone could make it. Mark, one of the group's core members, has been dealing with vertigo, so his ability to perform is limited. But even then, the rest of the crew shows up. They've said it themselves. We're still ABC, we never stopped. They didn't vanish. They weren't a fad. They were robbed, blacked out, and forced underground. But even after all that, they never quit. Another bad creation didn't just influence a moment, they shifted the culture. Before Bow Wow, before Lil Romeo, before Diggy Simmons, ABC proved that young black boys could run the charts, set trends, and own a sound. They made being a kid rapper cool without being corny. They introduced an entire generation to New Jack Swing for kids, with swagger, style, and lyrics you could sing on the school bus without getting in trouble. Those airbrushed overalls, the starter jackets, wearing your clothes inside out with the tag showing, that was ABC. But you won't hear their names when people talk about influential R&B acts, because their legacy got stolen. They were set up to be forgotten, not just by the industry, but by design. By keeping them off tour, cutting off their money, and erasing their story from the narrative, ABC's influence was swept under the rug while other acts built empires on the blueprint they laid. Even the disses from Criss Cross helped shape the era's aesthetic by reacting to ABC's style. And here's the wild part. They weren't just trendsetters, they were survivors. They navigated a cutthroat industry as children and came out the other side with their friendship, sanity, and dignity intact. They didn't spiral, they didn't lash out, they didn't expose people for clout. They just told the truth and kept it moving. That quiet resilience, that's the part of their legacy no one talks about, but they earned it. At the end of the day, another bad creation didn't disappear. They were disappeared. The industry used them, boxed them into a gimmick, and tossed them aside when it was no longer convenient. But while the music business pretended they never existed, the fans never forgot. That's the real story here. ABC wasn't a one-hit wonder. They were a blueprint. They set the tone for what youth in hip-hop and R&B could look like. They walked so groups like B2K, Mindless Behavior, and even Lil Bow Wow could run. They were exploited, blocked, and dissed by the same people who once cheered them on. But through it all, they stayed grounded. No scandals, no breakdowns. Just a quiet refusal to fade away. So the next time someone tells you ABC just fell off, tell them no, they were set up to fail. But they're still standing. Because when the industry forgot them, the culture didn't. And if you're just now realizing how deep this story goes, go ahead and drop your thoughts in the comments. Who do you think sabotaged ABC? And what other artists do you think quietly got erased by the machine? Subscribe for more untold music industry scandals, and don't worry, this is just the beginning.